Hello, this is Poet Spice, Jamie Lola Tallulah, and I am here to do a tutorial on the Anna Griffin jacket die. Here you can see the die, and it is a large die, so you will need a large format die cutting machine. I love Anna Griffin dies because her dies are thicker and they cut well. This was one of her new pieces, and so I'm going to show you how to do that. Here, I have cut a variety of pieces from other Anna Griffin dies, the cross and the words, as well as pieces from the actual jacket die. I'm using some luxury cardstock from Crafter's Companion. I love the cardstock. It's very thick, so you do have to take extra time to cut it. Here, I'm showing you how to layer up this die. You want to pay attention to how you lay it down on your paper because depending on which direction you put the die, if you have directional paper, there can be issues and have things be upside down. Okay, so my sandwich plate here is the cutting mat, the magnetic sheet, the metal shim that I'm going to put my paper facing up, and then on top of that I am going to put the Anna Griffin die. Now, because my paper doesn't have a direction, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go ahead and put it on there and try to maximize the amount of paper I'll have left. As you can see, I kept the impress, and so I'm just going to go ahead and turn that on and run it through the machine. Now, as I said, the cardstock from Crafter's Companion is a thicker weight paper. And so here I'm checking to see how it cut, and I want to run it through one more time just to make sure those pieces have cut all the way through. And now that I'm satisfied with the way it has cut through, I'm going to go ahead and take away the extra pieces. And then I'm going to run it through with the embossing mat. Now, in general, I don't do a whole lot of embossing of my dies because I tend to either do a lot of layering with them or coloring. So when I went back through to put it here, I could not remember if I needed the magnetic piece or not. So for your impress, you do not need your magnetic shim or plate to go in there. So you just need the clear plate. Excuse me. Your die with the blades up, and then your embossing mat on top. And then as you see with that combination, it went right through the machine. All right, as you can see, it's much better, and lots of the pieces have already come out, and you can also see that additional detail. That is one tip. If you are having problems cutting a die, cut it and then run it through with an embossing mat, and that should help push out additional pieces. Just make sure you don't take the paper out of the die first. All right, now I want some kind of a layer behind here, and I'm not sure how much I want and all that kind of stuff. So I am measuring out the next piece, trying to see how I want these two pieces to layer up. So I decided that I'm going to go over the fold mark, but I'm not going to cut the whole sheet out again. And I'm lining it up with some marks that I made. Then I'm going to run it through the machine. I'm not going to bother to emboss it this time. I'm just going to run it through. And then because I'm going to layer it, you're only going to see part of it anyway. Now, anytime you have a detailed die, you want to make sure you're careful when you're releasing it from the actual die itself, because it can rip in so many places and you don't want to do that. My other tip is this tool in one. Oh my gosh, it's a godsend. I love that tool. If you're a big Anna Griffin fan, she has a set of tools using the tool in one in her branded colors. Now, although I didn't do it here, you can see I'm having to take the time to actually weed out the extra pieces. Once again, because this cardstock is thicker. And two, I did not emboss it again. If I had just gone ahead and done that, it might have been easier to take these pieces out. If you're not familiar with die cutting, this is one of the things that makes die cutting so time consuming, is if you have anything but a basic shape, you do have to do the weeding of the die. Now, there is a product called Cut Tidy from the UK, and it's produced by Tattered Lace. That also can help you with your pieces. So if you'd like to see a demonstration with Cut Tidy, you can let me know and I can do that as well. All right, there you saw I was trying to decide where I wanted to do the layers. And now I am simply using the scoreboard, which is a mini Tattered Lace scoreboard, to reinforce where the jacket die folds over. Now you want to be careful. You don't want to just smash it over. One, because you have that extra little piece. And then two, if you fold it too quickly, without giving it some room and some play, the paper can crack. Now, as you see, it sticks out way too far, so you have to go through and adjust. Okay. Here, I'm trimming it down. Now here, if you went ahead and left it like that, you could make it into a pocket and then added it to another piece of paper behind it. And then you could have had a totally different look, feel, and use for your die. Always, when you have your die cuts, and take them and see what you could do with them besides their intended purpose. So here, if I just turn that on its side, glued it down certain areas, you'd have a double pocket already. Now I decided I'm just going to go ahead and snip that last layer of detail off and put it aside. That's another thing. Don't be afraid to cut into your die cuts. Here I'm using some art glitter glue to put that down. Eventually it does not stick the way I want it to stick. So I end up going back with some red liner tape because you're not going to see it anyway. When you are gluing to a foiled cardstock, you do want to hold on to it so that it actually has time to grab and set up. Beforehand, I went ahead and cut a mat that is slightly smaller than the other side. This is 5x7 card, so I cut it at 4 7/8 by 6 7/8, just to give a small border. Anytime you're dealing with putting something inside a folded piece, you always have to remember to cut the inside layer slightly shorter than what you normally would. Otherwise the edge, it'll stick off the edge. See here, it did not stick the way I wanted it to, so I decided to go ahead and use some red liner tape. The only downside to red liner tape is that red backing is so staticky. And then you have it everywhere and you can't get rid of it. It's crazy. Every now and then I'll see Cheeto or Walinda walk by and you're like, what are they doing? Well, they're covered on one side with red liner tape backing because they were messing in the trash. Children, what can you say? The fur babies. And Cheeto is worse because his fur is longer, so it gets all up in there. And I'm like, oh, gosh. All right, so here we're just going to go ahead and put that down. And I like to burnish it from both sides just to get it stuck down properly. Loving the colors of this. Now, you could put some strips of paper on the other side. Whatever you want to do to the inside. I'm trying to decide what I want the front cover to look like. I want to play with some of those pieces that I cut prior. Do I want layers and so forth? Now, eventually I decide against doing the layers, and part of it is because of the symmetry. Because the jacket front of the die doesn't go all the way to the edge, I didn't like where the design pieces were sitting. It felt off center. So I was like, yeah, I don't like that. Another thing is I do tend to put black somewhere on my cards. I think it just adds like a grounding to your card. So I do like to put some black on most cards. Not always, but if not black, then the other darker card. All right, well, this is what I have so far, and then I'm going to show you the end. Trying to keep the other colors out of it, but I went and triple layered the Happy Easter. I decided not to use the crosses or anything else, but I just like the Happy Easter on it. On the inside, that piece that I cut off, I went ahead and taped down as a border on the inside. So now you can see that other piece here. I put a place to write, and I double layered that leaf pattern to kind of bring it on top. And then these are two of the scrolls that are in the die set, and you can see them reflected here. So I just went ahead and put it here so the note would be small. And then I wanted to go ahead and mirror this on this side to take up some of that white space. Now you could very well just take it and cover it with a blank piece of paper or whatever, but I decided that I wanted to do this with it. And then on the back, it's just the blue card, okay? And I'll put handmade by myself, okay? So there you go, and that is a jacket die. And as you can see, did multiple things with it. All right, hope that was interesting for you, and I will be back for another tutorial. Bye-bye.